Hitler may have said he was God in Germany and could kill whoever he wanted. That was a fraud. He was a tyrant. Julius Caesar was a tyrant. But we don't have tyrant leaders today. They're just tyrant puppets. It's the global corporate crime syndicate coming in and taking over our society. Now, the flu hoax has imploded. On paper, in the courts, in the foreign news, but not a lot in our news. They're still running the ads to get your flu shot. Roughly 11% of people have died from this flu that regularly would die from the regular seasonal flu. And that's probably an inflated number. It's come out that most people they claim died had heart failure, kidney problems, were already very sick, drug addicts, HIV, had compromised immune systems. It was a non-event, clearly an engineered virus. Top scientists are on record saying that. Big companies were caught with bird flu that was also killing around 30% of people that took it. That's London Telegraph. That's now in the European Union investigation. Looks like we're going to have members of that commission on this week. We're working on that right now, very, very close. You cannot overstate how big this is. And they're saying the vaccine's dangerous. The vaccine's bad. It didn't help people. It hurt people. It was a fraud. It's now coming out that of the U.S. advisors, just like Obama's advisors on government takeover of healthcare, turned out basically all of them are getting $500,000, $250,000 from the White House covertly. It's coming out all these flu experts had worked or were working or had stock and were making money or were consultants, some cases making millions a year. These government officials that push the flu hype. To get the hype really going in January of last year, 3 months before it even raised its ugly head, we had emergency managers on. We had internal documents from the Bureau of Cemeteries in New York where they were telling police, get ready for millions dead. They were telling doctors before it ever even showed up in Mexico. So they were pre-hyping for total fear so people would buy into it. The good news is they've never had a flu vaccine fail like this. The majority of people are not taking it. It's rotting on shelves. It's a huge controversy. So to walk through this is Mike Adams of naturalnews.com, really the leader in amazing research journalism. He was there day one exposing this with us. H1N1 swine flu hoax falls apart at the seams, and he walks through it. So, and the next time they try to push it, it'll even be harder. Okay? So this is very exciting. I want to now go to Mike Adams. Mike, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Alex, for inviting me back. It's always an honor to talk to you and your listeners. Where do you want to begin? This is a huge topic.
Tell folks where you're joining us from.
Well, I'm in Ecuador. This is where I live permanently now, and if you hear construction sounds in the background, it's because I'm building a sustainable food forest here. The food supply is a whole other topic maybe we could talk about someday, but the food supply of the world is not as safe as people have been told, and myself and many other people are here making sure that we can feed ourselves, our families, and our neighbors when the time comes.
Well, Monsanto, it's been in hundreds, literally hundreds, probably more, studies. They've now, in major, in fact, guys, print me that article about the liver failure again. It's confirmed in the most prestigious journals, massive liver and kidney failure and other organ failure of people that are eating different varieties, well, of the rats, but those are similar to humans, of mammals that are eating their GMO corn. I mean, it's all coming out. But let's get into the flu hoax first, because I don't think people realize just how devastating this is and the fact that they're now being criminally investigated.
Yeah, it was a huge scam, and they knew it from the beginning. And if you look at what they were trying to accomplish with this hoax, I think it was really two things, Alex. There are a couple of theories on this, but one, of course, was to transfer a tremendous amount of wealth, billions of dollars, from the taxpayers and governments into the pockets of the drug companies. And they did that very effectively by spreading fear, by spreading false information. I mean, they're still out there saying you should take your vaccine shot because there could be another wave coming. You know, they just don't know when to quit. But the bigger agenda, I think, was to indoctrinate the American people into how they're supposed to behave when they're told to be afraid, and how they're supposed to line up and get injected with whatever chemicals they're told are safe, even though, Alex, you know this to be true, even though there has never been a single scientific clinical trial ever conducted on any of these swine flu vaccines that were approved by the FDA. So people were lining up to be injected with chemicals. They had no idea if they were safe. They were lied to, they were deceived, and they were indoctrinated. This is the way they want Americans to act from now on.
And that's what the EU head of their health commission, he says the bird flu vaccine killed a bunch of people. This flu vaccine's dangerous. The German government wouldn't even take this shot. People in government were paid off to push this, and they're having a huge investigation. I mean, it sounds like it's Mike Adams running that commission.
Yeah, well, the truth eventually comes out on all these issues. I mean, they can't cover this up forever. If you look at who benefited from this scam, it's very obvious. For example, the former head of the CDC, Dr. Julie Gerberding, she, after being part of this scare story and part of pushing the vaccines, she was offered a position as president of the Division of Worldwide Vaccines for the drug company Merck. And she took that position, and she obviously benefited in a huge way, a personal financial way, from spreading this idea that everybody should take vaccines.
Continue.
Oh, okay. Well, the WHO, World Health Organization, in my opinion, conspired with the CDC, conspired with the drug companies to falsely elevate this pandemic to a so-called level 6 pandemic, even though it was always very mild. There was never any indication that it had a high fatality rate. In fact, as you mentioned in the introduction to this segment, the fatalities for this were far lower than seasonal flu. And another fact that they're not telling people is that of those who did die from H1N1 infections, many of those people were vaccinated with H1N1 vaccine. I mean, have you ever seen that in the press, that some of the dead people were vaccinated and they died anyway? They don't tell you that, Alex. No.
It's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing to see this actually coming out in the open.
Well, yeah, finally. It's finally starting to get out there. And we've done things like, for example, I put out a $10,000 award for anyone who could provide proof that the H1N1 vaccines had been proven safe and effective. And today, Alex, not one person has stepped forward to try to claim that $10,000. And yet, these vaccine pushers, they run around on the Internet and all over the place in the media saying that their vaccines are scientific. You know, we're right and you're wrong. We have medical science and evidence on our side. Well, then why don't they claim the $10,000? Do they hate money? So I think, Alex, I'm going to announce on your show here that I'm going to double that award. I'm going to double it to $20,000. Let's see if anyone will step forward and claim $20,000 to prove that those vaccines were ever scientifically proven to be safe and effective. Let's see if that works.
Well, it could be $10 million. They can't do it because it's not been proven safe or effective, but the feds and the New York Times put out fact sheets, as you know, at schools, at vaccine centers, at medical facilities and government buildings, saying, oh, this dispels the myth, can't cause Guillain-Barré, can't cause autoimmune disorder, doesn't contain mercury. And I think it's the level of the hoax that blew up in their face. That's why they went too far, because everybody just went and actually got the insert that actually came with the vaccine that said it could cause all of those problems that had mercury in it. I mean, it's the boldness of the lying.
Yeah, absolutely. They don't know when to stop. And I remember journalists interviewing me, mainstream journalists, who would say things like, no, we've been assured by the drug companies that these vaccines have no chemical adjuvants, which are the inflammatory chemicals that multiply a small vaccine batch into a larger batch so they can inject.
And we know mercury and aluminum are adjuvants.
Oh, yeah, of course. You know, some of these vaccines have MSG-like chemicals in them. I mean, it's absolutely absurd. But it did blow up in their face because most people said, no, I'm not going to inject myself. I'm not going to subject my children to these poisons. And those people are doing just fine. Maybe they took some vitamin D. Maybe they ate some healthy foods. Maybe they got a little sunshine or just took care of their immune system. They're alive and well and doing just great. They don't need a vaccine injection.
Cass Sunstein says it should be an illegal conspiracy theory to say that sunshine is good for you. Did you see that?
No, that's a new one, but it doesn't surprise me.
I'm not joking. I know that sounds crazy, folks. Just like K.I. in Austin saying mercury's good for kids' brains. It's in his Chicago Law School report from a year and a half ago. He says, let me give you an example of a conspiracy theory that's outrageous and should be illegal. People saying that some sunlight is good for you. When it's every major medical outfit out there, all the major studies of how it stops you from getting many forms of cancer, we're supposed to get some sunlight. We'll be right back with Mike Adams, ladies and gentlemen.